welcome everybody to the Coaches of the Mouth. Coach Jeff Williams here, along with the Mouth Brent Bender, along with Coach Bray Cook. Our BSN guest today is Kyle Sutherland from Scorebook Live. Kyle, let's get into 6A real quick. Let's just jump right in. And PA, Greenwood last year in the finals. This 6A, the last 2 years, has become probably arguably maybe one of the most competitive leagues in the state.
No doubt. And you look at PA, what was it, coming into last year, they'd won 6 of the last 7 5A state championships. Then beat Green. They had a great matchup against Greenwood in week 9. And Greenwood came out on top of that game, and then PA got them in the state championship. But yeah, really the 6A has been for really the last couple, PA got that last year in their first season. And then El Dorado snuck up and got it in 21. I say snuck up because I don't think people were calling that before the season. But yeah, I mean, Greenwood has just been really certainly one of the top dogs up there. Benton, a couple of years ago, what was it, back-to-back state finals appearances. So I think those right there, and of course, Little Rock Christian always in the mix. 6A West, obviously, being at Siloam Springs, just the toughness of that conference. But starting off, just, teams right off the top of my head, you certainly have to put PA and Greenwood there. They're not only the defending state finalists, but and again, in the mix every single year. But I really like what Brad Harris has at Benton. They do lose a couple offensive linemen, but they've got, I think, 3 coming back. You got Braylon Russell at running back, some great receivers, and then you've got 2 good options at quarterback. So, Coach Harris always has them in the mix. I mean, they were semifinalists last year, took Greenwood to the wire. But I think certainly with Greenwood, PA, Benton, you can't go wrong with those.
Well, let's start in the 6A West. Obviously, Greenwood, PA, they're both in there. You talk about Greenwood, PA, Little Rock Christian, Russellville, Lake Hamilton.
Russellville is a team they're always going to play you tough, and you're going to know about it.
Dave Wheeler's done a great job. Although we're going to have Dave on here too. Their team's a lot tougher than they used to be. I mean, they're physically and tough.
Anthony Lucas, Eric Cohue, any coach that I talk to, they'll tell you that's a team that they don't. Kind of like in 7A, you don't. Well, used to be in 7A now. So you don't want to play a John Fogelman team, regardless of what the talent or lack of talent might be. That's kind of the same way with Dave Wheeler.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's start there, and let's bring on Coach Young here from Greenwood. State runner-up. Let's talk to him. Let's get right into it. Expectations at Greenwood are always high, and probably as high this year as ever before, because you had a very young team last year, got them all the way to the state finals, lost a tough game against PA. You had a great run, won the conference last year in the 6A West. You got a great quarterback coming back, obviously, highly talented. Couple of great receivers you played as 9th graders and 10th graders, and now they're getting older. Talk to me about your team. I know you feel real good about your football team, but talk to us a little bit about offense, defense, and special teams, just your overall look and where you see the season going and how your team's going to be.
Well, you hit it. We were real young last year. I think we had 9 seniors ended up, and we've got 32 this year. So we played a lot of kids that probably weren't ready to play last year. Luckily, they developed throughout the year, and we're excited about the group we got coming back. And defensively, I think we got 9 starters back, and then we've got 11 kids that played throughout the year. Our defense coordinator, Jason Gill, is as good as there is in the business. And, with that much talent returning, it gives us a chance to be pretty good defensively. And in this league, you're only as good as you are defensively. And so we're excited about that group. We got all 3 safeties back. Got a corner that's going to be a 3-year starter, Landon Nelms. Got 3 D linemen back, and then got 2 linebackers back. So a lot of experience returning, a lot of guys that played Friday night, important minutes. And, we're still a little bit small up front, but probably more athletic than we've been in a while. We got some guys that can run, and that's going to help on the defense side of the ball. Offensively, really talented group of wide receivers. We got 2 kids back that had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, Grant Carnes and LJ Robbins. Grant had 17 touchdowns as a sophomore. LJ started 2 consecutive state championship games. And then Peyton Preston broke his collarbone week 9, or he'd have had 1,000 yards. and he's back as well. And then we've got some more young guys behind him that we think have a chance to be pretty special. Offensive line, we got 3 starters back, a 3-year starter at center, Ryan Shortis. And then we feel good about the guys competing for those other 2 spots. We've got a little bit of depth on the offensive line, got great size. Running back is probably we got to develop some depth there. Really excited about Braden Davis. Will be a senior running back. He can run, catch the ball out of the backfield well. We don't have to change personnel with him, so we're excited about that. He can play receiver or running back. And then you'll see some of those receivers at times line up in the backfield. And then quarterback's the scary part. We got 2 talented sophomores. I don't think I've ever coached on a team where the only quarterbacks we had were both sophomores. So that's a little scary, but luckily those guys are talented. Kane Archer, we moved him up last year because we knew he had the potential to be a starter for us this year and wanted to give him that experience. And he's had a great summer, very, very athletic, understands the game really well, but he's still a sophomore, and he's still going to go through some growing pains. And then Cooper Goodwin right behind him is going to be a heck of a football player, whether it's at quarterback here one day or whether we move him to wide receiver or safety. But overall, just a ton of experience coming back. I've got a best group of assistant coaches there are, and I kind of sit back and let those guys do their thing. So when you combine talent, which we have, and good assistant coaches, it gives you a chance to be competitive.
Well, and you do have a great staff, no doubt, and a lot of them been there a long time and understand. People understand about Greenwood is the expectations, but just how it runs, and it's different than a lot of places in the state. Just how it runs and the expectations, and expected to be coached hard and produce and play hard. Let's get into the 6A West. It's almost the SEC, man. I tell you what, and it's funny how 6A football has changed. Where a lot of times back, you look 7, 8 years ago, it was kind of looked at as a basketball league, real top heavy, bottom half wasn't very good, and then all the realignment. My gosh, it's week in, week out. You get two non-conference games. There's no wiggle room. And, you got PA, you got Little Rock Christian's going to have a great team. Lake Hamilton's, won state championships. Dave does a great job over at Russellville. Mountain Home went in and won a playoff game. I feel Brandon feels like his team at Siloam Springs is going to be better. A lot of new staff guys there, feels good about it. Talk to him. Talk to me the outlay and how you go about preparing for the 6A West, and how do you see it shaking out, mate?
You remember when you were at Southside, playing great football teams is fun, and you've been a part of that, I know, for a long time. We enjoy it. We like playing those football teams. We like a challenge every week, and as tough as it was last year, it's going to be tougher this year. I think from top to bottom, I think 7 of the 8 teams are going to be better than they probably were last year. PA lost a lot of kids, and they're going to be young, but they're still PA. They still got an unbelievable running back. They got a great quarterback, played 3 games for them last year, got a wide receiver. And then those guys don't get enough credit for the coaching job they do. They do a great job coaching, putting their kids in position to be successful. So you got to start with PA. Little Rock Christian, they wore us out last year. And we went down there week 10 and played them at their place. That quarterback is as talented of a high school football player as I've seen. I've coached 24 years now. He can run. I don't think we touched him 2 hands. He can throw it. They've got great skill players around him. You don't really know who's going to show up because they're going to have some good players down there. And they got running backs, receivers, linemen. And, I think those 2 teams outside of Greenwood are probably the top of the league. But then, like you said, Lake Hamilton, what they do offensively, very well coached, and defensively, they're always solid. They're going to be right there. Russellville is much improved. Van Buren's got some good athletes. I think Siloam is going to be better. They had a young quarterback last year that I really liked that's going to be back, and he'll play a lot better. So, our league from top to bottom is it's fun. It's fun to play those teams, and if you don't get ready to play, you're going to get your tail beat.
Well, and it gets you prepared for the playoffs. That's the part, I think, and you nailed that, is, and you've been in those situations where, really there's 1 or 2 teams in the league, and you get in the playoffs, now you're ready. I mean, it's full. You understand you've played the best of the best. Let's hit overall state-wise. Last year in the 6A West pretty much dominated the East in the playoffs. Mountain Home goes over to Marion, beats them. Russellville beats West Memphis. And talking to those guys on that side of the state, it was a really young league. Obviously you got Catholic in there. John Fogelman's as good a football coach as there is in the state of Arkansas. I think Robert West Memphis is going to be much improved. Saw them. You've seen them a little bit at team.
Saw them at team camp at Northside. They've got some really talented players, and I agree with you. Do a great job. You can tell just the way he was interacting with his kids. The discipline is there. The talent is there. They're a scary football team. They're a team you don't want to run into in the playoffs.
Yeah, and Zach over at Searcy, he does a good job. They're going to score points, and Marion's talented Sylvan Hills. Just talked to Chris Hill from El Dorado, and he's got a young football team, but they're always in the mix, and that's a long drive down there if you got to go to the playoffs. And you're at the top. Let's just be honest. I mean, you're if in everybody's poll you're one or two, and you're going to be there. And I firmly, believe that you guys got a shot to be there in Little Rock. Y'all been there the last 3 years. You understand how to get there. Y'all understand how to win it. Just the overall landscape, the East is going to be better. The West is a tough conference. Where's the Bulldogs fit in?
Oh, I think you're right. The expectations here are to be there at War Memorial. And, we're not satisfied with that. I think that's the thing that kind of keeps us going. We've lost the last 2 years by touchdown and had opportunities to win those ball games. And if we coached better or made a better play here or there, it could have turned out differently. But we're excited about it. We don't cross over with those guys in the East as much, so I don't see them this time of year. Obviously we will once season starts with everybody getting everybody's film, but there's some talented football players on that side of the state, some great football coaches. You mentioned Zach Clark and Chris Hill now at El Dorado. He'll get that thing going with the way he does his offseason and strength training. I mean, those guys will be as good as anybody. Marion is just keep rising to the top. So it'll be fun and it'll be really, really competitive.
Well, there's no doubt, and you're going to be right there in the mix and looking forward. I get to watch, I believe, week 3 or 4. I get to watch you guys live, and y'all are always fun to watch. And Coach, we'll get you off here. Appreciate you taking time. Hey, good luck to you. We're going to have you on. I got a great feeling you'll be in some of the top 10 games of the week this year. So we'll have you on during the year. Hey, good luck to you, and hey, just keep doing what you've been doing.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you.
See you, buddy. They're very disappointed last year losing state championship.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's I don't even like bringing it up around him, but he feels like they were young last year, and they were, and he feels like they're on the verge. I mean, when a coach comes up to you and says, "Hey, I think we're going to be pretty good," they're usually pretty good.
Well, 2021, that might have been, and I say it's this kind of lightly because this is only going into his 4th year. But Coach Young has been a part of a lot of state championship teams, a lot of state finalist teams. He was on that staff. I mean, gosh, he's been at Greenwood. I think this is going to be his 24th year, so almost a quarter of a century. But he's never not been to a state finals as a head coach. That is the standard at Greenwood, no question about it. But you've got Kane Archer, appears to be a generational type talent, has a chance to be possibly the most recruited player out of Arkansas since Mitch Mustaine, maybe even more than him. But also, too, the youngsters that he's talking about, Grant Carnes and some of those receivers, but Cody Taylor might end up being the best lineman since a guy named Bray Cook recruited out of here. So,
wow.
I mean, but in all seriousness, Cody Taylor, he's already got P5 offers. He was the only, I think the ADG had him on their all-state team as well. He was the only freshman on one of our 3 all-state teams. And when I thought so highly of him, I think I put him on first. I mean, that's how good he was. He was killing people. And I shouldn't say that. He was dominating people in Class 6 against that competition that they play. And they played Stillwater. I mean, they talking about loading up a schedule. That's what they do. And so, I mean, you're playing against this kind of competition. And there's also a couple of, there's a few names that are slipping my memory, but there's also a couple other young offensive linemen in that mix too. But I mean, that's just one since, PA and Greenwood, those two teams especially since
and they match up week 9. Greenwood's got to go to PA.
Yeah.
And so then that's a difficult place to play. I got to go there last year, the first time ever. I've never been there. Of course, I've seen it from afar. And so I always get the games.
Well, barring some kind of emergency, I think that's probably where the buzz will be. We debated on driving all the way to Greenwood. That would have been our furthest trip by far. But I was talking to RJ about it. And I said, man, we're going to have to leave at lunch. We're not going to be back till probably 1, 2 in the morning. As great as it's going to be, I think we ended up doing Camden, Fairview, and Hot Springs, but which was a great game in its own right. But I mean, that's just going to be one that, there wasn't a lot of standing room up there. That wasn't Smith Robinson Stadium up there, but there's not going to be much. I've played in a lot of games at PA, and I've covered a lot of games there. There's probably not going to be even a standing spot.
Oh, there'll be people standing on top of the indoor.
No doubt.
I mean, there's no doubt. Let's stay in the 6A West here. Lake Hamilton's there.
Sure, always.
Got a good quarterback. Tommy does a great job. They're going to be very physical. We talked about Dave Wheeler's team. We're going to bring Dave on here in just a little bit, how he's improved that program. I even think Coach Craig at Siloam will have a better football team. Mountain Home, you really look at that league, and last year they go over there and just dominate.
Hey, Mountain Home's got it. I'll tell you what, that Steve Airy might be the most underrated coach in Arkansas.
Does a great job.
He has won 3 playoff games with Mountain Home, and they always get the draw of playing Greenwood, it seems, or PA, in the second round. But they have 3 playoff wins in his tenure there, and that's not supposed to happen. When you look at how they fare sometimes in the regular season.
Yeah, well, I saw them week 9 last year, or week 8, and they were struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, they were struggling big time. They get in the playoffs and go over to Marion, and I watched that game and just
they beat the snot out.
Dominated them. I mean, Marion didn't want any part of it. Or
they
were ready for basketball season or whatever, but just really dominated those guys, and he does an outstanding job but the West kind of dominated. Let's jump over to the East, and we got to start with Little Rock Catholic.
Sure.
You mentioned John Fogelman. What a great football coach. I worked with him at El Dorado for a year.
Yeah.
One of my good friends, and you don't want to play his teams, and he feels like they're going to be pretty good again.
Yeah. Well, Fogelman and I mean, I wouldn't say we're like best friends or anything, but we do talk because he's a World War II guy. I'm a World War II guy and a football guy, so we have a lot of the same interest. And I'll get at him for book recommendations and stuff like that. But I would say Carlisle and Catholic were by far the state's 2 best turnaround teams, and in terms of all classifications last year. But that's the thing, though, you're not really shocked because that Catholic especially did that. I didn't know Sam Sanders was going to be that good at quarterback. He was an all-state safety. Yeah. I didn't know he was going to be that good. Brooks Ward, obviously a great wide receiver, great baseball player. Dominic Keaton, I really like them at running back. He's small, but he runs so hard. Great wrestler. So I don't really know, what the quarterback situation as far as like how that's all going to turn out, and some of the other spots that they have to replace. But what an admirable job. But you talk about Marion. I think they're a sleeping giant. They're going to have one of the better offensive lines in the state. They were all juniors and sophomores last year. But that's the thing, too. They were really banged up last year. Like Jalen Smith, great running back, was hurt a couple of games. Ashton Gray, their quarterback, was hurt. Donnie Cheers, I think, ended up – I can't remember if Donnie tore his ACL in football or ended up in basketball, but he was hurt. So I actually talked to Zach Tribble. Speaking of Tribble, I think Randy Tribble's going to have a much better year at Greenbrier after a state semifinal run. But Zach was talking to him the other day, and they feel very confident with what they have, assuming that they stay healthy. And that's what it really boils down to. And if they do, then I think that they have a chance to, be up there with the Bentons. And I mean, they always do every year. But them and West Memphis, man, Robert Hooks, start going from, of course, Grafton Moore to Lanny Dowks, to Billy Elmore, and now what Robert Hooks is doing, after what he had done at Osceola. They took a big step in the right direction last year, and I talked to him for a good bit, probably about 20 minutes last week, and he feels really confident.
They feel good about their team. So, let's bring this guy on, Coach Zach Clark at Searcy.
Okay.
Coach, how's your summer? How's it going? How's fall camp?
Hey, going pretty well. Seems like the summer gets shorter every year, but that's part of it. We're excited to. I always enjoy that first week a lot. And then, the second week when you have your teacher meetings and man, it can beat you down if you let it. But, here we are, and with that 0 week, and now the benefit games pushed up. That I think more than anything, it's so important to have a productive summer and have good attendance and be ready to go early. And we did not do a very good job early as coaches, and I felt like we started off real slow. Slow start to the season, and we're going to have to come out of the gate a lot better this year.
Well, and you do, because we just had Chris Young on, talking to him a little bit, and Chris Hill also. And, with your conference, you get one non-conference and you don't have much wiggle room.
Exactly. I mean, we play 0 week. We have a bye week 1, and then it is 9 consecutive conference games. And, the only benefit is it makes scheduling non-conference pretty easy. I mean, how many years are you sitting there trying to find a third opponent? You got to play week 2 or whatever. It's a headache. But that's probably the only benefit of a 10-team conference.
Well, let's talk about your team. Last year you go in the week 10 and beat West Memphis. You get in the playoffs with a pretty young team, and one thing about you find a way to get in. You look over your career, and you obviously as offense coordinator at Fayetteville, won state championships, head coach of Springdale. You always find a way to get in, and we talked. Your league, and let's before we get into your league, let's talk a little bit about your team. You feel you got a kind of a younger team, and talk to us a little bit. Let's talk about your defense a little bit and how you feel about your defense, because in that league, if you don't play defense, you're going to be in trouble.
Right. Well, we, defensively, to be honest with you, we really struggled last year, and we did get better late in the year. But going into this year, we have 8 returning starters that are back. So we should be a lot better. Now, part of the reason for our slow start was we had our free safety had an ACL injury like the last day of summer practice, and we just we shuffled the deck trying to find move guys around. I think there were 3 guys that started the first game on defense that started the last game of the year in the same position. We ended up finding 4 or 5 different guys. And we didn't do a great job once, we had that injury, obviously, of finding where guys fit. But so we returned 8 starters and a free safety that would have been a 9th. So I do feel, right now, for really the first time in my 3 years here, the defense is ahead of the offense. And I am excited about the possibility of what we could be defensively.
Well, let's get into the new line offense. You're known throughout the state of Arkansas as a coach that can put up points. Quarterback kind of whisper a little bit, and you've coached some really good ones too. Unfortunately, I was part of the Brandon Allen fiasco there for about 5 or 6 years. Those guys were really good, and Powell and some of those guys, and Jack Lindsay, and you guys you find a way to score points. So talk to me about your offense and up front wise, or your quarterback and skill guys.
Well, we offensively we're almost brand new, but we do return our quarterback, who's a very athletic kid. I think he threw for about 2,500 yards last year and rushed for another 700-800. So, he's a very athletic kid. It's always nice to return. If you're going to have one returner, you better hope it's your quarterback. And we like Tyler Strickland. Again, he'll play college football somewhere, and then everywhere else, we are. We'll return 2 offensive linemen, but we're moving our right tackle to left tackle. So we'll basically have 4 brand new starters, or at least in a new position. And so, but I do feel like our offensive line potentially, we've got we're going to be okay. We've got some young guys that are coming along. It's just, I just talked to Coach English, our offense coordinator, who does an outstanding job. When you have that many guys in offense, it takes a while to find your identity, to more or less click on all cylinders. We just need to find something that we're doing that we do well, and that we can hang our hat on early. And so, again, right now we're searching a little bit, getting better. The defense is ahead of the offense, but I do think, at least as far as our pieces, we're gonna be okay on offense eventually.
Well, you've always been able to score points, and you're going to be able to do that. Let's get into your league. Talking to some guys, talking to you and some other coaches, your league was young last year. And that's just, it is what it is. I mean, it's there. Really took it on the chin in the playoffs.
Right.
Kind of surprised me in some areas, but then you get to talking to coaches how young the league is, and the league is going to be really tough. You're looking at Catholic. John Fogelman does a great job there. Won the conference last year. Robert Hooks over at West Memphis. I've seen them. They're going to be a lot better. Sylvan Hills has got a new coach, Chris Hills at El Dorado. We know what he can do. Brad Harris at Benton, and Greene County Tech's in there. They're just kind of got shuffled in there last year. The league is extremely tough. Where do you see the Searcy Lions in the 6A East?
Again, I don't know exactly where we'll fit. I can tell you, I felt like the league was down last year, and well, obviously it was, where the team we had my first year, I was like, gosh, if we could have had them last year, we would have, I felt like, finished top 2 or 3 teams. But then when you look at everybody's roster, everybody was young last year, and still talented, but yeah, all those guys. Marion's another team that is, they're loaded. West Memphis, they've pretty much had the same lineup for, this will be their 3rd year. Coach just played a ton of sophomores a couple of years ago. I have not seen Sylvan Hills, at a team camp or whatever, but I'll tell you, we saw Sheridan a couple times, and they're really good too. They've got a new coach. Have seen both West Memphis and Marion, and then haven't seen Benton and Catholic, but they're, they got put in our league, and really, well, obviously they're the 2 best teams last year, and they're picked 1-2 again this year. So it's a battle, and with 9 conference games, the thing that you got to do is you got to play. You got to play every week. Where I don't know much about the West side, but I can tell you our league is really deep. Even Jacksonville, I saw them a couple times this summer, and they're much improved. Haven't seen Greene County Tech, but they do a great job coaching, and they've got a really good offensive line. So our kids just have to get used to playing week in and week out. You got to play your best football really for 9 straight weeks in conference, and that can be a grind, but you can also, it's not a grind for everybody. There's some teams that, the best teams figure out a way and just get better every week.
Well, there's no doubt. Let's go to overall state-wise, the landscape. You've been doing this a while, and you keep up with, you're kind of a high school football story, and also kind of like myself, and that league, you look at over here in the West, and, Greenwood, PA, Little Rock Christian, those ones come out. And you have Lake Hamilton, they've won state champs. Dave's doing a great job at Russellville, Mountain Home won a playoff game last year. Brandon feels like his team's going to be better. Van Buren, that bunch. And then you get into your league. Where do you fit? You obviously get in, but where do you fit overall in the state? I mean, where do you see, if you had a crystal ball and you were
right
sitting here? I mean, how's this whole thing going to play out?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a fun part of preseason predictions. Obviously, I mean, you gotta go, until somebody knocks off Greenwood and PA, you got to put them up there somewhere. And then as far as, where we fit, I don't know. We've got to get through the conference. I do think, again, our conference is a lot better this year, at least going in. And I felt like really we played Lake Hamilton in the playoffs last year, and you can tell just watching them on I mean, you remember the days of, the original 5A, and then it was the 7A West where you're just battle tested. And, when I was at Fayetteville, you get in the playoffs and you play some central teams that were really talented, or East that were, they were really talented teams, but there's just a toughness that you build up when you play physical week in and week out. And Lake Hamilton physically they put it to us. They were just and you could tell they were just battle tested. We had a great summer in the weight room, or great off season, and until we get to that level, we're going to kind of stay right where we're at. But I do feel like we have the team that that we really could surprise some people, if things fall our way early.
Well, I think you nailed it. I mean, everybody's battle tested, and I think I think the 6A playoff this year is going to be really interesting, because your league, obviously, in the East is, they've been through it now, that they're not babies anymore, they're older, and with that experience, and then, the West, and I think if you're a high school football fan, you need to, in November, you need to go find a 6A game somewhere, because it's going to be great football.
Right. And I think it speaks to whenever you have, my first year here, El Dorado won the state championship as a 2 seed. Jonesboro won the league, and El Dorado was I'm pretty sure they were 2. They win it last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but PA was a 2 seed coming out of the West, and they win it. That I think as long as it's not just all chalk in the playoffs, I mean, that speaks to kind of the balance of, when you have 2 or 3 seeds winning it, like the old Southside. I think you're the only football guy to take a 5 seed to the finals.
Great 5 seeds. We're over by
But I mean, you don't see that a lot in football. I mean, usually it's the 1 seed rolling right through, and 1 versus 1 in the finals, and it hasn't been that way, the last couple of years. So there's probably 4 or 5, maybe even 6 teams that have a chance to win it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Well, Coach, we'll get you off here. Hey, we know you're going to be part of some of the top 10 games of the week, and we're going to have you on during the year. And hey, always checking your score, and really appreciate what you do, and good luck to you this season.
Well, hey, appreciate it. Thank you guys, and thank you guys for doing what you're doing. I love getting the weekly podcast or YouTube or whatever. That's one of the highlights of my week.
Well, we appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun doing it. See you, Zach.
See you guys.
Zach, I'll tell you what, again, back to the shirt and shorts thing, they had a really good performance at the Sonic Air Raid in Searcy the other day.
Well, and Zach's always going to be able to score points.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's going to get core. Yeah. He's one of the best offensive guys there is in the state. Yeah. And obviously with the interview, but talking to him off there, he feels like the 6A East was real young last year. It feels like it's going to be very, very, very competitive. Let's head down south to your neck of the woods a little bit. Let's bring him on. New head coach, and we'll talk about him and his transition here in a little bit. Coach Chris Hill from El Dorado. Coach, boy, I tell you what, you've landed in a great place. I worked there for 8 years. What I think it's one of the best football towns in the state of Arkansas. Tell me just real briefly about you getting in there, and what do you see, and what have you learned so far at your time at El Dorado?
Well, I think you're right. I think man, there's getting to be fewer and fewer less football towns in Arkansas. I think, and nationwide, I think it's just the way that everything's going. But man, when you start talking about football towns, I think you definitely have to throw El Dorado in there. And coach, as a coach, there's just a couple things you want. You want a place where football's important. You got a place where you got a chance to win, and where it's great support. And El Dorado checks all the boxes to me. I mean, we got great facilities. The winning tradition here, the importance in the community. So man, I just feel very fortunate and very blessed to be wearing the purple.
Well, it's a great place, and they've great tradition there. They love football. Let's get into about your team, and this is a kind of funny side story for you. Is of course I got former players that live there, and you get hired, and I had a kid. I got a kid. He's a grown man now. Calls me, goes, Coach, where we bring this wishbone guy in? And I started laughing so hard. I go, look, man, you have no idea about this guy. I said that's his background is he's going to throw it. He was throwing all over the field. But one thing that shows that you're a great coach is you'll do whatever it takes to win football games. And talk to us about coming in, about your team. I know you got a young team, but talk to us about how spring ball went your summer, and what do you see the future of this team going to be this year?
Okay. Well, I appreciate the compliments. As a lot of people, when I interviewed down here, Coach, you're a flex bone guy. I'm like, because I was flex bone for 2 years in high school. We spread, we played y'all, and, we were off the field and throwing it. And I started looking down at our kids, and I'm like, we don't have the same type of kids. And I always been intrigued by the flex bone. So went to that for 2 years, then 3 years at Harding. But my roots are in the spread with Coach Peacock. Y'all did some battles, and and I think he's I think he's one of the best coaches ever come through Arkansas, and I love the man. But my background is in spread. But sometimes, and I think what you just mentioned, I think part of coaching, a big part is making your scheme fit your personnel. You can have a great schemes on paper, but if you just have the kids that can't do it, those schemes are not very good. So, we will be we'll be in the spread here, but Coach, like I do, you hear the term spread. That's 100 different variations,
Yes.
Of spread. But we're going to be a run first football team. I think we got to be. I think really, with the exception of a couple of teams, I think you got people to win big. You got to establish a run on any level, and you got to be able to stop the run on any level. So, that's going to be our priority number one. Is we're going to run the football. But talking about our team, I officially started March 1st. Was able to get through off season, some off season with them, and of course spring ball. Spring ball went good. We got into the summer, and when you go in and take over a new program, you don't really know. Kind of have to evaluate the first. It takes 2 or 3 months to evaluate and see what here's the areas I need to prioritize and to get our program established the way we want it. And that's certainly not any slide on previous. It's just different. It's just different staff, different philosophy. So able to do that. Our summer program. I always worried as a coach. I think we think of things to worry about, and as how our kids are going to respond during the summer. What are they going to do during the summer? But Coach, we had 93%. We required them to get a minimum of 20 workouts. We didn't get out of school till second week of June. So we required them to get 4 workouts a week for 5 weeks. That's every week besides a dead period. And we had 93% of our kids got their workouts in. We've got a few that I think we got 5 that did not get their workouts in. Those are mainly sophomores who really hadn't, a lot of difference between a sophomore and a senior or even a junior. So, they'll figure it out. But, our kids have done everything we asked them to do. Our group of seniors, I think we have like 18 seniors, but every one of those guys had their workouts in before the makeup period came. So, they did a great job of leading their football team. And well as I do, you got to have a great senior leadership. Leadership. I don't care if it's a family, a church. a business, a team, you got to have good leadership up front. And I think our seniors done a great job of doing that for us this summer. But, then get into fall camp, you start looking at, and then, we start looking at personnel and players. I tell our coaches every day, got to constantly evaluate. Have we got the guys in the best position they can be in to be successful? If this guy's a backup here to a really good player, can he fit in somewhere else and get him on the football field? So we've got to do that. But, like you said, when I look at our offense and Coach, we may start 6 sophomores on offense. And, that's tough. That's tough on the sophomores. That's tough on the football team, especially playing 6A football. But at the same time, I don't think these 6 sophomores are your normal sophomores. I think they got a chance to be really good football players. And, we know they're going to be some growing pains going through it. But, man, I love those, love our team, our work ethic. We really focused on encouraging each other, being a great teammate, being accountable. And our guys have really done a good job.
Well, let's go to your league a little bit, which you're very familiar with. I mean, you were at Sylvan Hills, you played in the league. You got Little Rock Catholic, John Fogelman. I've coached a good friend of mine, former coach at El Dorado, assistant coach there. Does a great job at Catholic. Brad does a great job at Benton. You got, Zach Clark at Searcy. Robert Hooks at West Memphis is going to have a great football team this year. That league, and this is looking at last year, the league was so young and didn't have a great playoff showing. But this year it looks like your team's young, but some of those the other teams are a lot older. Talk to me where you fit in the league, and talk to me a little bit about the 6A East.
Well, I think the 6A East, I don't think it gets credit for being as good as it is. You look back to the playoffs every year, we've had team in the finals, semifinals, and so I think I know the West is top loaded. Of course with PA, Christian, Greenwood, that we understand that, but I think the East is probably better than a lot of people realize. But I think what 2 teams you just mentioned, I think if you start looking at rankings, I think you got to have Benton Catholic 1, 2, and you could flip a coin on that. I don't think it makes much difference. They both have a lot of kids back. And like I said, Coach Fogelman, I coached against him when I was at Ashdown. He was at Malvern. Always does a good job. I always enjoyed visiting with him. Top notch guy, class guy. So I think he told those 2 teams we got to be at the top. But I'm telling you, Coach, after that, I think he could put their names in a hat and draw them out, and I think it could fall out a lot of different ways. Guys with me at Wynn and at there at Sylvan Hills last year. Tyler Turner's taken the job at Sheridan, and they've improved drastically. I think they were 7-2 I know it's 7-on-7, but winning's winning, and you want to practice winning. I know they're going to be better. You look at Searcy, like I said, with Coach Clark. I mean, West Memphis, Marion. There's some good football teams. There's some good football teams, and I think any Friday night, like I said, I think you could flip a coin. And you never know, a young team or a team gets a little confidence early in the season. They got a chance to push. They got a chance to push Catholic or push Benton. So, I think it's going to be a very interesting year, and it's going to be fun Friday night checking scores.
Well, I do. And I think you hit on something, from top to bottom, could be the toughest league in the state. I mean, you talk about the West is a little bit, it is top heavy a little bit, but and there's some other good teams in the West, obviously, but
yes.
The East, I mean, you just nailed it, from top to bottom. Anything could happen any night. Let's look at the landscape. Let's go overall 6A. PA won it last year, obviously, just bumping up, and Chris Young feels like they're right there in the mix in the West, and then Little Rock Christian's got a great quarterback. We talked about your league. Where do you think the Wildcats fit overall state-wise? We know you're young, but y'all got that tradition and that part of it. Where do you see you guys? I mean, it's early, but just if you see a crystal ball, where do you see you guys overall in state a little bit?
Well, you're right. It's just, man, it's so hard, with a young team. We have one guy on our offense that scored a touchdown last year on a Friday night. So we're very young. That doesn't mean we don't have some talent. It just means we're young. We got young talent. So it's hard to tell with young kids and kids that are inexperienced. In the previous, when we had a 8-team, you had your 3 non-conference games to kind of polish and fix and move people around. And, man, we play first game. It's right in the conference. So every game after that is huge, for rankings and places and conferences. But, Jeff, it's just hard to say because, you got a young team and can we have some success early and build confidence and get that ball rolling? Or do you struggle and then we struggle with self-confidence and then of course injuries are huge. But to be realistic, I think middle, right now going is what we got. I think with so many guys unproven, I think middle of the pack there. But if we can do some things early and get a little confidence, we can protect the football. We'll be no huddle. We're going to control the clock. We want to, we played when I was at Van Buren. We played Coach Peacock the year I think they won it, or or played y'all in the finals in 06, I think it was. Yep. And they were really good on offense. And man, we got the ball. We snapped the ball with 2 seconds every time. They ran like 8 plays the first half, and just frustrated their offense because when you do that, when you hold the ball, the other offense gets antsy. Coordinators, they want to start taking shots and kind of get out of their game plan. So, we're going to try to control the football and doing that, keep our defense on the sideline and let those guys get fresh. But we're doing that just to try to control the clock, like I said, and just eat up time. And there'll be times where we'll go fast, but that's certainly not that's not our plan going in. But and you got to how does the communication work? Can our quarterback get everything communicated to our offensive line, to our receivers? With a new guy, with young guys, probably a good chance going to be a sophomore or a junior there at quarterback with not a lot of experience. But like I said, that don't mean that they're not talented. But it's just it's a coin toss to me with as young a team we have. If we can go out and play well against Camden, Camden's a really good football team.
It's got a good team.
And then we got, they're all 5 offensive linemen got offered the other day by UAM. Then we got Marion coming in town. We know how athletic and how loaded they are, and coach does a great job over there. So, if we can get a little confidence early or and play well early and just see, okay, guys, if we fix this, we've got a chance to be a really good football team. Because I think by mid-season, by the time things get settled in, I do think we got a chance to be a pretty good team.
Well, and I think you will. I mean, you do a great job. You look at your history. You've been successful wherever you've been, and you've built programs. And I think you're a perfect fit at El Dorado. Well, Coach, I'm going to get you off here. We're going to have you on. I got a great feeling that the Camden Fairview El Dorado game will be one of our top 10 games of the week, and we'll have you and Nick on and talk about that. But I'm going to leave it with this and you nailed it. In 6A, you play one non-conference game, and then you're in the conference. There's not much wiggle room at all. And then in the West, they play 2 non-conference games, and they're in it. And so you lose 1 or 2 early, you're fighting it just because there's so many teams in there.
Yeah, that's correct. So it's just, and I don't know what's the best scenario of the way the setup is, but I know what it is. That's the way we're going to play it. And we don't have to be real good August 18th against North Little Rock in a scrimmage. We need to be really, really good September 1st against Camden Fairview if we're going to have a chance.
No doubt. Well, Coach, good luck to you. We're pulling for you, and the Wildcats are dear to my heart, and I check your score every quarter, every Friday night. And good luck to you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Coach, I appreciate it. Go Cats.
You listen to Coach Hill. Going to El Dorado. El Dorado has great tradition. I coached down there 8 years, one of the best football towns in the state of Arkansas. And then we'll hit Brent a little bit on this. Chris Hill's going to come in. Everybody, I had a couple of players. Coach, we're bring this flex bone guy in, and people don't realize that he has a huge spread background.
Absolutely.
And I think just word on the street. I have, I believe that they're throwing around a little bit. You've got the inside down there in Union County, Mouth. Talk to us about the Wildcats.
Everybody I've talked, first of all, let me say, El Dorado's all got a special place in my heart. My dad was the coach there 5 years, 74 to 78, and then athletic director for 2 years. Let me tell you what, they hit the home run with hiring Chris Hill as the coach at El Dorado High School. I believe that if you're going, according to all the people I hear that I talk to around El Dorado, this is the year to get them if you're going to get them, because their junior high squads are almost back to the point of being loaded like they were when Coach Reed won his 5 state championships there, and Chris Hill's a proven winner. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know, and he's gonna win at El Dorado, and he's gonna win big. He'll win the state championship there, I do believe.
Whoa! No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure. You're spitting state championships out.
I'm just going ahead and laying it down.
I'm sure he's gonna love that.
He'll love it.
Well, the last two coaches there have won a state championship, so no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure at all. And Chris Hill's a great football coach. You know, I look at this and I think it could go either way. Anyway, you know, we didn't even bring up Little Rock Christian much, but 6A, man, week in, week out, and there's going to be some great matchups.
Yes, and I want to say this. On my travels to watching, when I went to Northside and watched Southside, Northside, all that bunch, Russellville, West Memphis.
You've been big on West Memphis.
West Memphis was there.
Yeah, they got some stuff.
They look. Hey, their first 22 are the first 22 you won't come on off the bus when they're coming to play somebody. I just want to tell you.
Well, and they drive all the way to team camp at Northside.
Yeah,
probably for a reason.
Yeah,
and
there were a lot of people that left there impressed.
Yeah.
with what Coach Hooks is building there at West Memphis. Yeah. He's had some for West Memphis. He's had some very tough years.
Yeah.
He's had, but I really think they're going to.
Well, he can. You know, Coach Elmore talked about it. I mean, it was that COVID year was just, it was tough for him. Man, that was one of those that you just. I mean, you got to give everybody a mulligan, and it's like talking about Benton. You know, they were coming off of 2 straight state finals appearances, and they had to drop out of the play. Most of the dropouts were teams that knew they were probably going to get clubbed.
Me and Bray went through that year together.
Yes, we did.
You know, we missed 4 or 5 games of COVID. I remember you called.
Well, there were some teams that played like 4 or 5 total.
I think that's right. I think we might play 5. I don't even know, but that was a tough year. Let's do this and let's wrap up the 6A and then jump into 7A. You know, Greenwood, PA. You know, they're obviously in the mix, but there's some other teams. You get some injury. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have a chance to get there.
I really want to see. What is this, year 4 for Steve Airy? I want to go back to them and see, because look, Mountain Home has surprised people in the playoffs. Yeah. What can they do? And that's what he told me last summer. You know, pretty much like the biggest thing is just continuing to get kids out of the hallways and off the field. And you know, there's a lot of coaches that deal with that, of course. And but I mean, he's not a Missouri Hall of Famer for no reason. And you know, again, just Mountain Home doesn't have a lot of. I mean, what they were on like a 23 game win streak or losing streak or something like that when he came in. So just the way that he's turned it around, it's like, okay, we're getting to the playoffs, we're getting a win. Now, what can we do to get a better seeding to where you don't match up with like a PA or a Greenwood in that second round top? I mean, you have to play him at some point eventually, but it's just a brutal draw. And it's like, okay, you upset Sylvan Hills, you upset Pine Bluff, or whatever the case may be, and then it's like, oh well, here comes Greenwood, here comes PA. It's just, you know.
Yeah, and so I mean, the coaching change. Sylvan Hills got a new coach, and so
they're going from the flex bone to the spread.
Yeah, so. And we'll see how all that train. 6A is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to 7A. Yeah. First thing steps that really comes to mind in 7A is the coaching changes.
Yeah,
I mean, it started. You know, Coach Keith Fimple and you know, starting off there at Conway and you know, Randy Coleman getting out at Jonesboro, and then the shocking news of all was, boom, Buck James going to Conway, and then the ripple effect is Quad going back to Bryant. Coach George, who I think is going to do a great job at Jonesboro, gets hired at Jonesboro, and you look around. I was talking to our good buddy Scott Reed. I go, my gosh, you're the longest tenured guy at one school. And he's been there, 4 or 5 years. And let's start with the 7A Central because it has dominated the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, and especially we're more than that, probably about 7. Let's start off with there, and I think we all got, even though they got a new coach. And I'm going to ask you something, and this is something people don't see or understand. Quad gets the job, comes back. Buck lost both coordinators, and Quad was one of them, but he's back, so that's
Kirk Bach went to AD.
Kirk Bach goes to AD. Those, I don't care what kind of players you are, that's still some dynamics, and they've got good football coaches there that were on that staff, and I think they're going to be fine. But those little dynamics and changes, everybody always looks at the head coach, but those coordinators, you start changing offensive line coaches, those things, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
I think you got to start with Brian. Talk to us about Brian, how loaded they are.
Well, it all starts with Brian every single year. And, this is like, I ruffled a couple of feathers because in our final rankings for SB Live, obviously you had Brian at number 1, but I put Bentonville, even though Bentonville made the finals, I put them at number 4. And the reason why I did that is because and again, I don't mean this any disrespectful, but they just, that particular night, they did not belong on the same field.
It was a bad matchup.
It just was a bad matchup. And so, but you look at Cabot. I covered that game. They went down to the wire with Bryant. Conway, they struggled with Bryant. I mean, they turned the ball over 7 times in the first game, but they did beat Bentonville. So that was the reason. I mean, I definitely think that the Central, like you said, I mean, really, like it was after Little Rock Central won those 2 state titles back-to-back in 03 and 04, from 05 to, 17, mm-hmm. It was in Northwest Arkansas, no question. And people are going to think because I'm from Central Arkansas, but I just call it as I see it. It's just been pretty much Central. I mean, when you look at Cabot, Conway, and Bryant. And so it is Bryant up there at the top. But I'm really interested to see what Scott Reed does again because he lost so much from 21. And you're like, what are they going to do in 22? Well, they're right on the verge of a state championship appearance, and he's losing some guys from that team. But again, like the mouth said here, he's not a multi-time state champion for nothing.
Oh, Scotty Reed don't sleep on Scotty Reed. I can tell you that in quick. Let's talk about Conway.
Well, and I talked to Buck a good bit, did a 30-40 minute interview with him the week after they won their most recent state championship. And, I really compare this situation. I think I've mentioned this to you, Jeff. I compare the situation a lot to Barry Lunny from Southside to going to Bentonville. He won 4 state championships there, not in a row like Buck won 5. But it just really kind of comes to a point where it's just you want a different challenge. And, I'm not sitting here trying to, speculate but I mean, Buck's kind of told us, in interviews with you guys and multiple other media that kind of some of his reasons for doing that. But, I mean, Conway truly is. I mean, it's one of the best jobs in the state. Yep. And and just kind of like I say, his situation was similar to Barry Lunny's. This is a similar situation with what he took over at Bryant because Bryant under Paul Cowley was a playoff contender. They were a really good team, but they just couldn't get over that hump and get to the state championship game. Buck did it and did it with authority, So, and that's kind of where Conway is. 3 straight semifinal appearances. Haven't won a state title since the 1960s. Now that town is going to, I mean, I think that they're probably, if he wins a state championship in Conway, he's probably going to get 2 statues, one for each side of the city.
Yeah.
And that's just how much they've won. I mean, they're obviously an elite girls basketball program, won a state championship in basketball recently, and baseball last year in 22. So, they got a pretty good softball team, got a good boy. James Bates just got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Great coach.
Yeah, I mean, so they've done it in every other sport. It's just and they've had a consistent football team, just not a championship one.
Well, and Keith Fimple did a good job.
Absolutely.
Just get, it's right there. And let's do this. You brought up Cabot. Let's bring him on. The great Scott Reed. Coach, glad to have you on. Man, what changes are going on in your conference, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Talk to us about your team last year. You get to the semifinals, kind of beat up against Bentonville, play a great game, and it is what it is. Played Bryant to the right to the wire in the regular season last year. You've done a phenomenal job there. Talk to us about your team. You're a big, physical, strong team last year, which Cabot usually is. What are we looking like this year?
Well, probably not quite as big, but same MO. Hard-nosed, tough kids, play hard. You can count on them to compete every Friday. That's impressive. We just finished Saturday morning our first pad practice. It was extremely competitive. We did a lot of individual drill type stuff, but that's just our culture and our kids here. When I got here, I think one of the first meetings I had with the staff that we got through, and I said, "Is there anything I need to know?" And they said, "Doesn't matter what, Coach. They're going to fight every Friday. They're going to go at it. They're competitive. You're going to enjoy coaching them." And that's what I found. Last year's group surprised us. So had an outstanding year. You look back, you'd like to get one more, but be honest with you, Bentonville did a great job of executing in 2 minutes after we got the lead late. It was a great high school football game, and no complaints. Last year was awesome.
Well, phenomenal year for you guys. You beat Conway, week 5, and which was a huge game, and that rival there is just something else. And I got to saw that from afar. We did a good Lord, 20 years ago did a preseason game was when I was at El Dorado and Southside and Conway Cabot with those guys. That's a huge rival, and what a great atmosphere. All right, let's get into what we really want to talk about your league. And we've been talking about it on the show. Kyle's here, and Bray and all of us and all over state. Buck going to Conway, and then
Who?
Buck James going to Conway, and then Quad going.
Who?
Yeah, you don't know that guy.
There's been a little change. Yeah,
There's been a few
been a little change in our league.
It has.
Uh,
How does that all work out? And what we've been talking on here is, and I've mentioned it, over at Cabot, it's been real quiet, and I like those quiet games in the off season. And I know you've had to replace some defensive staff guys, that gone in administration, do whatever. Talk to, in Southwest, I've talked to Coach Patton. He feels like, he's really got a great bunch too. And Bryant in that league has dominated the last, 8 years pretty much in 7A and a lot with Bryant, but others, but talk to how competitive that league, how physical that league is. And what do you see in the 7A Central?
School we were at, and now we're the two older, or we've been at our place the longest. When I got here, I remember when I was at El Dorado and Daryl was at Fayetteville, and he said, "Man, you need to get up here in the 7A West every night. It's an awesome league to coach in. Every night's, every Friday's a huge battle." Well, now, the Central's gotten that way too. So you have to play well every Friday. When I got here, the first couple of years, it was Bryant and Conway and North Little Rock, and we couldn't get over that hump. Last year, we played really well against Conway and may have caught them the right week. And then at the end of the year, North Little Rock was just a little down last year. They were still a good football team, but we were playing really well at the end of the year. So we took a big step there. But I look at this year, I think Northside's, Felix is in his second year. I think they'll be better. I know Daryl's a lot better. The buzz around our league and around Central Arkansas is about Southwest. And then I don't see any drop off for Conway and Bryant. And I think Clint will do a good job at North Little Rock. And I don't want to leave anyone out. I know Central's under change, but I see that their kids are working. Same thing with Jonesboro.
Yeah.
They were in 7A for the first time last year. They're talented. I know I've played against Jonesboro for a long time. It's kind of like Daryl used to say about the 7A West, there are no weeks off.
Yeah.
And our kids understand that. We embrace it. That's we want to play in that league.
Well, I think that league's real top heavy. But just you hit some things. Jonesboro getting, the second year in the 7A. You talk about Southwest. I think, the kid went to Central is going to do a great job. I've watched him coach as an assistant coach, and they're going to do a good job. All right, let's go here. And I've talked to some 7A West guys. We've had them on here. You know, I asked them, were they kind of cutting their eyes with all the changes down there? This is a time they could kind of sneak in there. When you see 7A as an overall landscape, you're in the mix. I mean, the Cabot Panthers are going to be in the mix. What do you see? You know, Bentonville is got a good football team. Rogers is climbing up here. Bentonville West. Coach Pratt does a great job. So I think the Southside Mavericks has got a great chance to really be talk to Coach Dameron. They've got probably the best offensive line in the state and 2 great backs, quarterback. Feel like they can score some points. And then you got your league. Where do you fit? What do you have to do to get there? And one thing about you, you know how to get there and you know how to win it. What do you have to do?
Yeah, we met with our kids at the end of practice today, and it's interesting that you hit on that, because the last thing I said to them was there are 16 teams in the 7A, and right now everybody in the 7A, you know, has a chance, believes that they belong, has had a good off season. I said, when you look at it honestly, it's probably, you know, that the Bryants, year in, year out, Conway, Bentonville, Fayetteville, you know, the teams you can count on being there. And I said, there are probably 10 or so, 8 to 10 that realistically think they have a shot to get there. And I told them, I said, we're in that boat right now, but where we are right now isn't going to matter if we don't continue to improve weekly. You got to get better as the year goes on. Football is different than other sports where you can play basketball year round, and you can, with the same equipment you're going to play. Today is the first day we've been in pads, and you've got to make every day count. You've got to build a culture. You have to have a group that's really hungry, and then it's got to last to the first weekend in December. You got to do a lot right to do that. Our strength is we've got a bunch of good kids that are ate up with football. That's the strength here in Cabot. We've got kids. We practice two different JV teams. We've got 150 something kids playing, and they absolutely love it. And that makes it fun for us, and makes our job as coaches a little easier, because every day we open the doors, they're there waiting, and it's awesome to get to coach in that kind of environment. And then, you know, we hope we're good enough. We hope that things go our way and we make the right decisions and make the plays we have to make down the stretch to get there. And we're close, but that old James guy has kind of had everybody's number.
Yeah, he has for a while. We were joking. I said, you know, he's ran a lot of people out of that league, including myself. I mean, and
I'm just stubborn.
Yeah, you're gonna bang on it and bang on it till you get his butt. But y'all have got, you know, a lot of history. You know, when you were at El Dorado and he was at Canton Fairview, and he's a great coach, and Buck's a great guy. But I tell you what, I'm really looking forward to the 7A. I think it's just gonna be interesting. You know, obviously with changes, but you know, Buck went to Conway, but the players stayed over there too at Bryant, and Quad's a good coach. And
you know, that's going to be an interesting week.
Yes, it will be.
I would like to be playing one of them the week before they play each other.
Yeah, exactly.
But that will be interesting. That's and it's going to make it great for our league.
Oh, makes it just.
There's so many side stories and whatever. And you're right. We're going to try to sneak in.
That's what you do. That's I always tell him. I said he stays quiet and he just kind of rolls around down the stretch, and all of a sudden he usually hits the finish line somewhere there. Well, Coach, appreciate you having you on. We're going to have you on this year. Obviously, you're going to be with a lot of top 10 games of the week because of your team and your league, obviously. But appreciate you having on. Good luck to you.
You bet. Is Bray in there?
Bray, he's over here.
Good luck to Bray too. Hey, and thank you all for what you're doing. We appreciate the support for high school football in our state. It is. As you know, I know a lot of us, we spend our life doing this.
Yeah.
And it's an awesome way to do that. You know, it is. And what you're doing is helpful, no doubt about it.
Well, I think it gives our audience and people an insight to see what you guys go through and kind of, you talked about the side stories and things like that, what makes it great. And
Yeah.
there's nothing better than high school football in Arkansas.
Thank you, guys.
All right, buddy. Cabot Scott doesn't say a lot. It's always quiet over there.
Very much so.
And I like quiet teams.
Yeah.
You get some teams that are just too noisy, and they're quiet. They're going to be in the mix.
Yeah. And
with all the shuffling around, they've got the consistency. Now, he did have to change some defensive staff people. The defense coordinator, Painter's still there, but lost some guys, had to replace them. But they're going to be in the mix. Talk to us about
and what's so crazy about that is, I mean, I know this is year 4, I think, for him there, but I mean, you had to go from a dead tee that kids have grown up, their parents grew up in, and maybe even some of their grandparents. That's all Cabot has ever been known for. I grew up down the road from Cabot, and that's all we've known with Mike Malham. So he goes from the spread and everything. So that in itself was, of course, that first team he had, golly. I mean, that semifinal matchup in 20, I think it was the COVID year with North Little Rock back and forth, one of the best games I've ever covered, ever seen. But I mean, he's like last year. I'll just be straight up honest. I kind of doubted whether not that they weren't going to be a good team or anything. I just wasn't sure they were going to be like, one of the top 2 teams like they were. But that proved to me like, okay, do not look at what this man has done historically, and now he's doing it in the biggest classification and the toughest conference, still keeping them up like he is.
Well, and they beat. Really opened your eyes. They beat Conway earlier in the year.
Yeah, and they had Bryant. I'm not going to say they had him on the ropes, but he went for it on 4th down, and I questioned it. At first I'm like, what? Why are you doing that right there? But then I'm like, you know what? If like with how good they're playing, and it's like, okay, that makes sense. And then again, that's why I'm in the booth, and that's why he's on the sideline.
Well, you go in a game like that where you're a little bit outmanned.
Absolutely, you got to go for it. And there wasn't a lot of time left
in that part of it. And let's move over to the 7A West. Let's bring on Jody Grant, who they've dominated this conference for, good gracious, the last 10 years. Let's bring him on. Coach Grant. Coach, how's it going? How's your summer been?
Well, it's going really good. Our summer's been good. We've started fall camp on Monday. We're 4 days in, but we had a good summer. Good, our kids we team camped 2 or 3 good times and had 2 or 3 7-on-7s. So had an opportunity to compete against some other teams, but really we used the month of July to focus on us and start installing special teams and just kind of, getting prepared for the season. And now we're 4 days in and it's going smooth so far.
Well, I went back and I was doing a little history lesson here on myself, and we were talking about conference championships, talking about the 7A West and what all's involved there. If I'm not mistaken, y'all have won the conference or been a share of the conference champion since 2007. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Good Lord. Because I think like one year, there's been, you've tied for it a couple of times here or there, but I mean, that's an amazing run. And of course, Coach Lane was there. You've taken over and continued the success they had there. Let's talk this. Let's just talk about the 7A West a little bit. We've talked to Casey Dick. We've been around and talked to some other people. Looks like your league this year, Southside, I think, is a team you got to watch. I think they got a really good offensive line and some good backs. Of course, Fayetteville's always in the mix. You guys, West, and Rogers is, they've got a lot of good players. Chad's done a good job of climbing the ladder there. Where do you see you guys, and where do you see the 7A West shaking out a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, the thing I love about the 7A West is every week you're going to see a team that's very, very well coached and very well disciplined. And I think stuff like that is just what prepares you for a playoff run. I think that Bentonville Tigers are going to be in the mix like they are every year. Obviously, Fayetteville is a team that's always going to be in the hunt, and I've heard good things about them. We saw them a little bit in 7-on-7 and team camp, and they looked the part. Harbor with a new coach, a new system. Anytime you change coaches, I think that adds a new excitement to the community and the kids and all that. And so I always think you can, expect them to be a lot better. Rogers is a team to me that is on the rise, and this is a class that has had a lot of success and Saw them in 7-on-7. They were very dominant in all their 7-on-7 tournaments. Had a chance to see them a little bit in some team camps. That is a team to me that is the 7A West sleeper in a sense of, not that people aren't aware of them, but they're going to be able to, they're going to be in every game every Friday night, in my opinion. And then that's the same thing with West. West, that staff puts together a good team each and every year. So, that still, leaves some good ones. Like you said about Southside, they've got a very, very talented back behind probably the best offensive line in Class 7A. And they're obviously very coached and do good things. So, yeah, my expectations for the 7A West are high. You look at what Heritage is doing. They've won their first conference game in a long time. I think they won 3 games. I know that's not the expectations of other programs, but that's a pretty big deal for that school that hadn't won any conference games in a long time. And then there's some excitement at Springdale with a new offensive coordinator and what they're doing. So here's what we need: the 7A West to be good. We need every week it to be good teams and doing good things. So I hope that it's a tough league. Still hope to come out on top, but I hope it's a tough league and prepares us all for the playoffs.
Well, and it is a tough league, and for years that was the deal: just get in and coming out of the 7A West, and you had a chance to make a run. Let's go statewide here, and we talked to Casey a little bit about this. Is what's the 7A West coaches talking about? Buck James jumping to Conway, Quad coming in to Bryant, and then Coach George taking his spot at Jonesboro. A lot of changes down there. Cabot stayed pretty quiet, which Coach Reeds always does a great job. Talk to Coach Patton. He feels good about Southwest. Thinks they're making a jump. Where do y'all fit? And you've made a run. I mean, y'all got beat last year in the finals by Bryant, and you were there before against North Little Rock. Y'all are there. You're playing on Thanksgiving every weekend. What do you got to do to just get over that hump? I mean, it's funny to say about Bentonville because, Lord have mercy, y'all have won so much, but just to get – you get there and, Bryant's, and I'm saying getting over the hump, Bryant, well, nobody's been beating them, so it's not y'all or the rest of the league, it's the rest of the state. What do you see and what y'all got to do to get there and to win it?
Well, I'll speak for everybody. We all have to figure out a way to beat Bryant Hornets. That's just the truth. And in 2017, Bryant Hornets came to us in the semifinals, and we beat them pretty handily in the semifinals. I think they've lost one game to an in-state opponent since that game. So that's we all got to figure out that formula to beat Brian. That's not going to be easy. I mean, they got some dudes over there. They're well coached. I don't know that no disrespect to Buck James, but Quad's a phenomenal guy that's helped be a part of that program. I wouldn't see a huge drop off in Bryant just due to the coaching change, just because it's kind of one of those deals where if Quad and that staff just do what they've been doing, they got a chance. Now, obviously, you add Buck James to the Conway formula, although that Conway had it going on with Femple anyway. I mean, that thing is rolling. They got dudes, facilities. There's a lot going on there. I'm sure Buck will go in there and kind of get some things tweaked, and they're going to be a contender. But it just comes down to we've got to find a way to beat the Bryant Hornets. And I learned this the hard way last year. That's an easier thing to do than people realize. I mean, that's a harder thing to do than people realize. And but it's doable. It's just a matter of time. We had some success against the state championship game for about a quarter, and then that went downhill in a hurry. So, but we're working through what, we discussed this a lot just in the 7A West is what can we do as a conference to rise above the Central, and there's some things that we think we're doing that could help, but until we win it again from our conference and specifically for Bentonville, I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting.
It's tough, and like you said, I kid with Buck. He ran half the coaches out of the 7A Central, and I was including one of them. Just because they've been so dominated in that part of it. Well, Coach, good luck to you, and hey, we're gonna keep following you, and good luck to this year, and hopefully we'll see you in December.
I hope so. Hey, I appreciate y'all having me on.
You can see the hunger in them. Oh. We're sitting there talking about. I thought last year going into the finals.
Well, they know they got their butts kicked.
They did, and but I remember Buck calling me. He was like, "What do you think?" I said, "This is just kind of a bad matchup for them, and that's playoffs. Right. I mean, it doesn't. Not you got a bad team. Some teams just match up better, but better keep an eye on those guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can't ever discredit, and I think you guys talked about this on here. I think it was this podcast, but just the consistency with their coaching staff. Jody Grant was under Barry Lunny, and just, I mean, all those guys have been there for so long. Tony Cherico.
Dan
Yeah.
Meyer, Dave Pollard, all those guys, they've been there. And consistency, people don't understand, is, sometimes I think you need a little change, but that's been great, great for those guys. Let's do this. Here's a team. I think there's two teams in the West I think you got to watch out for, and I'm gonna hit Brent later on with two of them. Number one, we're gonna bring him on here, is Coach Chad Harbison at Rogers. Coach, hey, how's your summer? Glad you're here. Talk to us a little bit of how your summer's gone and fall camp.
Well, summer's been good. I mean, sometimes as a head coach, you kind of have to figure out what's enough and what's too much. And you always try to reevaluate each year and try to figure out what's best for the group that you got coming. But as we wound down summer, it was a positive for us, and our kids got their competition days in and did well in those. And we obviously feel like we came into fall camp in pretty good shape. The first week of camp went pretty smooth. We practiced. We've kind of started a deal last year. We put our 9 through 12 on the field together, and it's an organizational nightmare. But once we kind of get it going and kids understand how to practice and where they're supposed to be, we feel like we got a lot out of last week. So looking forward to getting week 2 started in the morning.
Well, I tell you, you just made a point. That's a whole different subject. We'll get into that. I'm talking to a lot of coaches and seeing that, bringing those ninth graders up to practice with the high school, to get those guys where they understand how practice, what pace looks like, and the organization, and kudos to you, and you're a great coach and always going to do the right thing to give your team a chance to be successful. Let's get into your team, and before you get going, we had Kyle Sutherland over here from Scorebook Live. We were talking about top players, and man, there's a lot of Mounties on there. And one thing with your program, since you've taken over, you can see it just climbing the ladder. I mean, climbing the ladder. Where are you at right now, program-wise? I mean, 2 years ago played Bentonville really tough. They've had a handle over the 7A West. But let's get specifically into your team. Talk to me about your team that you got coming back offensive and defensively. Seems like you got a lot of weapons.
Well, I'm kind of to answer the big question. I think every school, and you've been to a few of them too, Jeff, is administratively, it's structured differently at every place you go, and you have to figure out how to navigate the waters at those places. And one of the things that we struggled with, and it was blatant right off the bat when we started this deal 3 years ago, is our kids were not developed and were able to compete at the level of the top echelon teams in our conference. So the first thing we knew we had to do is find a way to keep kids in the weight room, get bigger, get stronger, get fat, do all the things everybody talks about. But we had to do a great job of that. And probably this year is the first class that we have coming through that's been in 3 full off seasons where we've had most of our kids in there. And it finally feels like we can line up on a Friday night and not get mashed up front and handle ourselves and give ourselves an opportunity to be competitive, because we are stronger and we are a little bit bigger, and speed wise we're adequate. So that's the first thing. And then getting into the schematics of things, we do have a lot of guys back. And another thing, we took over, we had to find guys that get on the field. We've got a bunch of kids coming back that are going to be 3-year starters this year, which they've played a lot of football and they're starting to get the accolades and things like that. So I think the thing we're working on right now is just not listening to all that noise and understanding you got to win every day. And I told them the other day that J.J. Watt says, success is least. You got the rent's due every day, and they got to learn to get that mindset back and not feel like they've arrived, or that because we've won a few games in the last 2 years that we're automatically going to win again. You've got to go do it. So I think that's the thing we're working on most, is just the mindset and the attitude of our kids.
Well, go into a little bit some guys offensively you got? I mean, it seems like, man, this list of receivers just, I didn't know
Yeah.
you both had the most receivers in the state. I mean, you got a lot
Yeah,
of them.
we did. We have a good group coming back. I mean, Mabry Verser, starting with Mabry, playing outside receiver. He's beefed up. He's 210 pounds now, 6'4", 210. He's got some mid level Division I offers and stuff. So I mean, it's nice to have him. He's also big enough that we can get him in the box. He can block. He's a physical guy. He doesn't mind doing that. He's an unselfish player. Does a great job. Move into our tight end that's returning. That's played a lot of football. That's Jansen Gardner. He's another 6'4" kid that very, very intelligent. Plays a lot with his mind. Does a great job. Understands our offense probably better than anybody out there. Grayson Cash, has an injury, but he'll be back, and he had a great, outstanding year last year. Another 6'2" guy that we can throw it to. And then Jacob Jenkins, our running back, had 1,500 yards last year, and he's a 200-pound downhill kind of guy. And then our quarterback's back, Dane. And I think, the experience of a quarterback, you guys all know this, that that second year to be we haven't had a 2-year starter since we've been there either. So this year is the first time we've had a returning starter at that position. So it's kind of nice to have a guy back that's been in the fire and kind of understands what it's like. Hopefully the game will slow down a lot for him this year, and you'll see a little bit more success out of that position. But our skill guys we return are pretty good, and they played a lot of football.
Feels pretty good about their offense, and it's kind of if we can be good in situational defense, or we could talk to us a little bit about defense, because you understand it. I mean, usually at the end, whoever plays best defense is usually around a little bit. And so talk to me a little bit about your defense.
Our defense is probably the strength of our team, to be honest with you. I think we gave up 17 a game last year, which in modern day football is pretty phenomenal. So, and I don't know, Jeff, to be honest with you, I'm not going to sit there and say, but I think points per game we led the league last year. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% sure about that fact. But we were good enough that if we could play a little bit cleaner offensively last year, defensively, we're good enough to keep ourselves in games, which is, if you go back and look back 2 to 3 years ago, that's where we really struggled. We've always found a way to score a few points, but, stopping people is the key. And on defense, I mean, here's the hard part for us is you're going to hear a lot of the same names. And we're going to play those guys because they're really good. And, it almost feels like we're playing a little bit of 3A football here because we're going to play some guys on both sides, and we're going to play them a lot on both sides, which we do have guys that can step in and give them a break. But I think we'll start up front defensive line wise. Those guys are all back. Bennett Tyner, defensive end, Nesto Gonzalez at the other defensive end, DJ Dara played a lot for us at nose last year. Those guys are all back. Inside linebacker Tyler Pinkerton played next to an all-conference guy last year, has really gotten a lot better this offseason. He'll play a junior. Corbin Norris will start inside with him. And then we'll rotate a lot of dudes in our outside linebacker spots. We got Isaac Chapman come back, who's an all-state guy last year at outside linebacker. On the other side, we have Braxton Lindsay, who is all-conference as a freshman. He'll be a sophomore this year coming back. And then, Jacob Jenkins, who plays running back, will play some of that. He'll be in that mix a little bit. We got Andrew Trineri coming back at corner, and he also plays safety for us and bounces back and forth. He's played a lot of football in the back end of our defense the last 3 years. We got, Marcus Mounts, who played a lot last year as a junior or as a sophomore, coming back at safety. Coming back, you'll see Mabry Verser at the big wide receiver at safety. Dane Williams, our quarterback. A lot of people don't know this, but Dane started the last 3 games of the season last year, the last game of the season and the 2 playoff games, both ways. played all night at safety and quarterback. His dad's our defensive coordinator, Dale Williams, who does an unbelievable job, and he understands our defense as well as he understands anything. So we play him when we have to. So we got a lot of guys coming back over there.
Sure do, and boy, when you're good on defense, it makes things a lot easier. Let's get into the league a little bit. And we've talked to Jody and Casey and Coach Dameron, and I've talked to Hobbs and different guys. Boy, the 7A West, man, Bentonville's had a strong hold on it for, my gosh, we're started looking at it. They've won the conference championship or tied for it every year since 2007. Of course, they're in the mix there. Coach Pratt over at Bentonville West, they're always does a fantastic job. You guys are creeping up. Heritage had a little success. Springdale's bringing in Bryce Bray, who's an outstanding young coach, going to run the triple, which is something different than everybody doing. Harbor's got a new coach. Fayetteville got a great quarterback as usual. And then down in the River Valley at Southside, they got, a Division I offensive line. And talking to Tad Stewart, he acts like it's the best he's ever had. And when he makes that statement, he makes all his former players mad, and they get upset about it. But they've got two good backs also. And so the league looks as good as it's been in a while.
It does. And you're exactly right. All the things you just said, I think everybody's going to be better. Everybody. And so, obviously Bentonville's Bentonville. It just feels like if you want to, consistency there, they've always, for 15 years in a row now, they've been right there at the top every year. Of course, Fayetteville's, probably has as much talent as anybody. Of course, Drake's, I think he's the only Division I signed or committed quarterback in the league. I know we have some really good quarterbacks in our league, but he's a Division I, Power 5 guy. So that's always nice. Of course, we saw some of these guys this summer just at 7-on-7s, things like that. You could tell that Harbor's system, those kids are playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing a lot better. We saw Springdale at a team camp, and you mentioned Bryce. His dad's our O-line coach. We know exactly how good a job he'll do and how good he is at what he does, and they're going to be much better. And Coach Pratt, they're always going to be in the mix because they just do an outstanding job with their players and getting their players to play hard and understand their stuff. So I don't know. I just, like you said, Coach, we just have to play. We're going to line up, play every Friday night, and it goes back to the old fear of the mistakes you make, the better chance you give yourself. And that's we're just going to play clean football.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely tough league. Let's go last thing here. Let's look at the landscape of the state, and things have changed. Obviously, you were in the league when I was in the league also, in the West, 20 years dominated. And you really look at the last 8 to 10, the Central's dominated. And there's a lot of reasons why, split schools, blah, blah, blah. And there's great coaching everywhere in 7A and all over the state. But in 7A, there is great coaching. What does the West have to do to kind of get back going with the Central? And the Central's really top heavy if you kind of look at it. But, at the end of the day, Bryant's Bryant. Until somebody beats Bryant, they're still at the top. Buck going to Conway. And there's a lot of changes in the Central. Buck going to Conway, Quad going back to Bryant, Coach George at Jonesboro. And those things factor in. I don't care who you are and what you're doing. Those things do factor in. Talk to us where you feel you guys, we got you right in the mix for, in the state playoffs to make a run. Where are you guys at, and where do you see overall 7-8?
Well, you said the Central you could see the turn coming. You really could. And I think you go back to the split. You said something about the school splits, and you think back in years ago, Jeff, when Northside Southside split, it took about, after talking to a lot of people, it took 15, 20 years to kind of absorb the damage and overcome that and kind of get people back to get the parity back. And so I think you're just now seeing the Northwest Arkansas schools kind of get and we're growing. I mean, everybody's still growing. We're adding families up here every week, and we got more and more kids coming through. The good thing about it, I think, in our area, youth football is probably as good or as strong as it's been in a long time, which is great to see. Uh, but and I think back when Chris was at Harbor, he would always wanted to get the coaches together, and we would try to find ways and do things to help our league become stronger. And I think we've done a lot of stuff with our younger kids, JV level wise, with camps in the summer and providing opportunities for those guys to get better. We got to do all those things, but that it still feels like there's a dominance going on down there with obviously Bryant. Nobody's beaten them since 2018 in the state. So there's that dominance, with Buck going to Conway, that they're going to continue to be. They've always been good, but with his track record, they're obviously going to be better. And then I think the sleeper down there is Cabot, with Coach Reed over there. I think that's who we got to really I think they're sitting there going, all this other stuff going on. They're the one constant down there right now that I believe if they could be the sleeper in this whole deal in the whole state this year.
I've kind of been joking around about that is, and I'm like you, in your places like this year, I don't like a lot of noise in the off season. Coaches, assistant mood going here and just, dealing with this and don't sleep on Scotty Reed. That's when he's at his best.
No, sir. We played them in the playoffs 3 years ago and just got hammered. I mean, just got pummeled. I'm talking about physically dominated, and that's what you're going to get when you play them. So I'm just hoping we can play good enough football if we get to that point in the season we're playing them at home, because you don't want to play down there. But there's a lot of football to be played before that happens. I think our league is better. I honestly and truly thought last year I went down and just wanted to go watch the state championship game because I thought Bentonville, with the way they can run the football, because we played Bryant in the second round and we had a little success doing a few things. Obviously, they beat us bad, but we didn't feel awful walking off the field because we thought if we didn't make so many mistakes against a really good team, we had a chance to kind of hang with them. I mean, we felt like Bentonville had a chance to win that game, and then some bad stuff happens early, and it kind of gets away from. But I thought last year was the year maybe we could get it back, and I think we just got to keep working and keep doing the things we're doing, and keep developing our kids and our programs, and keep developing our younger guys, and hopefully we can get back on top. And there's been too many years here lately that we haven't had a team in the championship game. And last year we got back, and then of course year before Fayetteville was close, but before that it was Bryant, North Little Rock, or it's been those guys down there battling it out. So it's just going to keep plugging away and keep doing what we're doing.
Well, I think it's going to be a very interesting playoff when it comes that time, and a very interesting season because you've done it long enough to know you get to deal with injuries or this or that. You just don't, that people don't realize coaching a football team every week is a brand new adventure. Every day is a new adventure, and obviously the year's a long ways through. Well, Coach, we appreciate you having you coming on here. We're going to have you on during the season with our top 10 games a week. Obviously, I've kind of scanned through a few games and kind of got you guys circled a few times. So we'll have you on here. Good luck to you, and appreciate what you do.
All right, thank you, guys.
Man, I think they're creeping.
Well, here's the thing about Rogers is all their stud skill players, they were juniors. Yep. Jacob Jenkins, I mean, where did he come from? I mean, This guy's rushing for 250 plus yards in a game, and then of course you got multiple. I think that's actually Rogers. I said when we were talking about receivers, I know I put 3 Greenwood guys. I might have put in 3 Rogers. I know at least 2, but you got Grayson Cash that has actually been hurt. Mabry Verser got a lot of really good size on him. So I mean, it's just one of those deals to where they get, like I said, just about everybody back, and certainly going to be one. They were a really good offense last year, but I think that they definitely take that step up. It's kind of like right now I'd certainly put Bentonville and Fayetteville, as we always do. But who's that third team going to be? Is it going to be Bentonville West? Is it going to be Rogers? Is it going to be maybe a Fort Smith Southside and they make a big jump? I would imagine that's probably going to be the next team that you're talking about. But that's kind of where it's always comes down to, because I think other than Fayetteville winning the conference in 21, what's it, Bentonville won like 16 straight years or something like that. So those two, and then who's going to be that third spot, I think, is those third and fourth spots is really what it boils down to. And I think that's, probably going to be Rogers, Fort Smith, Southside, Bentonville West in that mix.
Well, we talked about Southside. Best offensive line in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question. Two great running backs. Got a quarterback's a dual threat guy. They feel like they're a little bit better on defense. That's where they've struggled.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is depth in defense the last several years. And Coach Dameron feels like that, they've got a shot to have a chance. Let's bring Coach Dameron on right now. Coach, how's it going? How's your summer?
Oh, it's going great. It is hot. I think driving home today, I saw it was 106 at about 3 o'clock.
Oh, just melt. Well, Coach, let's get into it. Your team, a lot of people are talking about this season. Your offensive line, your running backs, your quarterback's back, and really people, expectations are pretty high for you guys. Talk to me a little bit about your team, just in general.
Got 22 seniors, and you know how that is. It's nice when you've got some experience, and most of those seniors have played a lot of football for us over the last couple of years. And, they took their lumps early when they were young, and, we got continually better, I thought, over the last couple of years. And so we're just hoping that we can reap those benefits of that experience from those players. And, we've got some explosive guys in the backfield. We've got big linemen. We've got a quarterback that can run and throw. And so we're expecting offensively to be explosive, to be perfectly honest with you. And we'll be a lot more diverse, hopefully, offensively than what we've been over the last couple of years also. We've been kind of one-dimensional over the last couple of years just because of personnel and things like that. And then defensively, I think that, we're older, we're a little more physical, we're better fundamentally. So, all those things hopefully will all come to fruition at the same time, and we'll be a good football team.
Well, I think so. Talk to us about this. We just talked to Jody Grant a little while ago and earlier, and it didn't hit me where I was going through. Bentonville has won that conference or tied for that conference since 2007. That's unbelievable to me. I think, they're
I mean, that, what a run, in a league, and Bentonville has a lot of advantages, but still to be able to do that and to play at that caliber of competition for that many years in a row is really says something about the coaching also. Yeah,
they do a great job. Rogers is another team's kind of climbing up the ladder. Chad's done a great job over there. I feel like you guys are in Fayetteville with Casey, and of course Springdale's bringing in a new offensive coordinator. Harvard's got a new coach. A lot of dynamics. Where do the Mavericks fit in the 7A West? I mean, I feel like you're in the mix there.
Well, that's a great question. And, the thing the only thing we can control is us. And so we're going to try to be the best version of us that we can be. And so I think we'll be able to, compete with anybody in the league. And really in spurts, we have done that over the last couple of years. Even when we were young, we just couldn't, sustain things very long. But I think that if we can get on a roll and protect the football, that's the big thing is we've got to win turnover battles. We got to win football games the way all of us understand how you win football games. You got to win the turnover battle. We got to be able to run the football when we want to run it and throw it when we want to throw it. And defensively, we've got to be great in situations. We don't have to completely shut down people, but we've got to be good in the red zone, good on money downs, and do the things defensively, especially in the takeaway area. We got to be able to take the ball away. And so, if we will do those things and continue to get better athletically, we feel like that we can compete with anybody in our league, and we'll be able to see that right away. Obviously, when we open up against Northside, because, they're going to be a heck of a team. They always are, and they're always well coached, and you know that better than anybody.
Oh, I do. And that game's so crazy. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in that game. I mean, you don't know. I mean, over the years, we've got teams that are favorite. They come in and get beat. I mean, it's a crazy game, but it's a great test for y'all early, obviously.
It is, and it's something, that rivalry game being the first game of the season, it's a blessing and a curse because, you always have their focus because they know that they're going to have to open up with their arch rival, but it's also somewhat of a curse in the fact that we have to open up with our arch rival.
Well, and of course, when I was there, we always played them last, and it seems like if we beat them, boy, gave you a lot of confidence because in that setting, in that game, there's no bigger playoff atmosphere than unless you are going to the state championship. And so It sets you up. Let's talk about overall state-wise. And we've had a couple of 7A West coaches on here. Are the coaches up here kind of looking at each other, looking down at the Central Conference with, Buck moving over to the Conway and then Quad coming over from, was that Bryant went to Jonesboro, coming back over. Coach George is at Jonesboro. Just all the dynamics over there that's going on in that conference. Where's the 7A West fit in there? That the Central's kind of dominated the last 10 years, and then you look on the back half, the West dominated the 20 years before then. Where do y'all fit in that rank as far as playoffs? You played North Little Rock last year. Boy, I thought you had them on the ropes, and so
our season. Yeah. Our season for the last 3 years has ended at North Little Rock. So, hopefully we might get to go do something else. I don't know, just because, but, I think just because of Bryant and the talent level that they have and everything. I mean, you still have to say, I mean, even though Buck's not there, I mean, you still got to say, man, that's got to be the team to beat. And so, and I know that, Conway's going to be athletic. North Little Rock's going to be athletic. Of course, I'm kind of partial to my boy Scott Reed down there, and I think he does as good a coaching job as anybody in the state of Arkansas, or maybe anybody in the country, because, I've known Scott. We went to college together. And so I've known him forever. And we actually worked together at Stephen F. Austin, and he does as good a job with a high school football team as anybody I've ever seen. So, it just that whole league down there, but especially the top of that league, I think is really hard, for us to look at and say, boy, we can go down there and beat them, because athletically and coaching wise, they're excellent. And, I know even, Bentonville and Fayetteville and the last, couple of teams from here that have gone down and gone a long way in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff, they eventually have succumbed to, Bryant.
Well, you made that point. Buck might have left, but the players didn't go with him. And
I've always found that I'm a lot better coach with really good players. And it's been that way for the last 35, 40 years. So I don't think that's going to change.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And, I think that conference top heavy, you talked about Cabot a little bit, and they've been sitting over there, been quiet all summer. And those quiet teams all.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard it all, don't have a quarterback, don't have running back, can't run, nobody, don't have any speed, don't have this, don't have that. And all they do is line up, just beat everybody they play.
There's no doubt. Well, Coach, we appreciate you having. We're going to have you on during the year. You're obviously week 0 is probably one of maybe our top game of the week with Southside and Northside. No bigger rival in the state of Arkansas than that. And we'll have you on during that time. Appreciate you coming on. Good luck to you this season.
Well, I appreciate it, and I look forward to it. And hopefully next time we got the mouth on there.
The mouth, he's always rolling. There's no doubt about it. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you.
Well, obviously, you see, that's a team you need to watch.
Yeah.
And If they can stay healthy, I think they've got a shot.
And I think one thing about Coach Dameron, people forget about his history. You know, he played for the Razorbacks under Lou Holtz, coached under Lou Holtz. Him and Sam Pittman were on the same staff under Rick Minner at Cincinnati in 1996, I think it was. So he's got a long collegiate football history there. And so then defense has been his side of the ball. Shoot, Eastern Illinois, I think that was Chad Morris's opening game, if I'm not mistaken, with him there. So he's got a long history, and it's not by mistake that he is rebuilding these Mavericks.
And he's a defensive guy.
Absolutely.
And, hopefully they can, get that fixed. All right, Mouth, let's talk about a couple. I'm going to give you about 3 people to talk about here. Let's hit with your boy Scott Reed over at Cabot. What do you think? And then talk about 7A Central.
7A Central would just be a bloodbath for 7. Is it 7 weeks? Is the conference season 7 weeks?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it'll only the strong will survive in the 7A Central. Obviously you got to go. Bryant's still the top dog till somebody knocks that Duracell battery off their shoulder. Quad Sanders is stepping in to the creme de la creme job in the state of Arkansas. Best of luck to him. Then you got Cabot, Scott Reed. Know him. He's like family. 5 state championships. When I talk to him on the phone, some days it's, I don't know.
If I've heard Scott Reed say that, I've heard him say it a million times.
And I'm like, here's a quarter. Call someone who cares.
Somebody's kicked this dog every day.
I've heard this for 12 years, or ever how long we've known each other. It's every year, whether he's good or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Then who was the other?
I want you to get back to the West and get on Southside a little bit, which you've talked about. And
yes.
And where do you think they? If you and Coach Dameron spent a lot of time.
Yes.
Talk to me about where you think he feels, and we had him on. In your personal opinion, you've watched them. Where do you think they'll be?
I think they're up there in the top 3. I think they're fighting out in the top 3 spots in the West.
I like it.
I do. I think there's one thing Southside's going to bring to you this year. They're going to be physical.
Yes, sir.
They're going to line up and they're going to bloody your nose. And if they can, they'd be perfectly contented running it 40 times a game and watching the clock run, because they've got the type people that can do it. They got the running back. They got the running back / wing back slot man. They got a dual threat quarterback. The key to them is just steady improvement on defense.
I think steady improvement in which everybody says it, just depth wise. Got to stay healthy.
Staying healthy.
That's it.
And that's the key. Let's get right down to it. That's the key to everything in football is staying healthy. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe Coach Dameron's first year at Southside, he took over for you, Jeff, and I believe that was COVID year. Is that?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So I give everybody a pass on that COVID year because it was hodgepodge, and we may play, we may not, we don't know. We probably won't know till Friday morning at 10 o'clock. We're gonna go. But so really, the Southside's made strides in his. This is the 3rd year, and that's usually when most teams make their big jumps. And they've been steadily improving from. I believe they won one game the first year to 2 the next to 4 last year, I believe.
And I think you'll jump. I'm going to throw this at you and we'll end this segment. My surprise team, I've talked to you off there, Southwest.
No question.
Is visit with Coach Patton, and this is the key. If you know him like I know him, here's where I knew that there's something to this. He was talking about it, they're getting this guy, blah, 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 and we're really building it. But I asked him, I said, what are you going to run on offense this year? And he goes, the spread.
Yeah.
And when he said that, getting away from triple and where he's trying to shorten games and he's getting back to what he knows.
And that's what he does.
And that's what he does. And you start looking over there at the 7A Central, all the changes. What's Jonesboro going to be like? I think Coach George is a good coach, going to do a good job. You start looking through, Northside might be down a little bit this year. You start look for the Southwest to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of become now that we've seen them, and because and look, I'll say I saw them play their first ever 7-on-7 tournament at Benton, and they were rusty, but they got a kid. Look out for Jabron. I think it's Jabron Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was on that. I should know his. Man, I've done so good with names, the last few for a while. And Jabron, he was one of their running backs last year, but nobody, they were literally having to tackle him in 7-on-7 just because, nobody could stop him. So that's going to be one to watch out for. They've really got, of course, you got the Murdoch kid that came over, first team All-State player, linebacker from Mills, got him. And of course, got Chase Forte at quarterback. You actually have a quarterback competition, which is really great, especially going from a dead tee to a spread. You'd want to have some quality guys there. So, yeah, and I don't know that I'd be so confident if Darryl wasn't such a proven head coach.
Yeah.
If this was just somebody that we didn't know a ton about, then it'd be kind of like, well, it's just we got to wait and see. But he knows what he's doing. And,
well, I asked him, I said, is this a Bryant 99? And he just kind of winked at me and walked off. So,
yeah.
And I don't know if it'd be that big a jump, but
yeah. He's as confident as he's been.
I do, and I think they're going to get in. And they never know.
I think they're a playoff team, no question.
I do.
Because they went 0 for his first year. The second year, they won one game on the field, got that forfeit against Parkview, so technically 2, but 1-9. And then last year, kind of like what you were saying with Southside, Southwest got 2 wins last year. So it's just, it's only up, from here. So.
And who knows, you get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, tell everybody how to follow you and see your work. We really appreciate you coming.
Yeah, man, it's been
you've given us loads of information.
No, it's been. I have to say, man, you guys have done a great job. I listened from the first one. I mainly, I listen because I've followed you guys obviously for a long, Bray during his football career, and got a chance to meet him in 2014 that we talked about at a Ekman Foundation event, and so met him back then. But of course, followed Mike Bender all these years from when I was a kid when he was O-line coach. So yeah, what you guys are doing, man. I learned a lot. Bray talks about how he takes notes for what he's going to do to be a better coach. Man, I just want to take notes because it's so interesting. When I do my Gridiron Icons episodes and the coaches podcast that
I hate to interrupt.
Yeah,
if you've not seen the Gridiron Icons he does, I just love those.
Yeah,
I love those.
Well, and it's so nice, man. Especially that Gridiron. So technically, Gridiron Icons, Arkansas's greatest football coaches, is the full name for it. But I got the idea in 2021, and Don Campbell was really sick at the time, and I was like, well, he's going to be my first guest. And that, since then, I've had the opportunity to do the top 10, most of the top 15 winningest coaches, of course, with the exception of Frank McClellan, who's no longer with us. Had a lot of Coach Elmore and Dowks and all Coach Jim Sane, all those guys helped me with that episode. But it's just been a lot of fun, man. Obviously the families really appreciate it, but I look back and some of the greatest influence, just like any guy that played sports will tell you, and girl, coaches were ones that had the main impact on my life, so that was kind of my way of giving back, and it's just been great. SB Live picked it up, and it's kind of one of those things I used to do every month, but it's kind of been sparingly now just because we're so incredibly busy. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, so I appreciate the kind words on that. But it's just listening to them and listening to the coaches on here, I definitely take notes just because, there's a lot of life lessons too. It's not just stuff that you have on the field. So, yeah, it's definitely an honor to be a part of this. And it's been a lot of fun.
Well, tell everybody how they could keep up with you.
So at K_Sutherland, SUTHERLANDAR is my podcast, my Twitter handle. And then you can find SB Live at SB Live Arc on all the social media platforms. And then, of course, our website, scorebooklive.com/Arkansas.
Kyle, really appreciate it. It's good stuff. And we'll have you on during the year, obviously, and really looking forward to it. look forward to our next episode. We're going to be rolling along here. Football season's right around the corner. I'm excited. Everybody's excited. We'll see you next time.